Welcome back everyone, once again to another SnowRunner video. Today is going to be the 4th truck request, and here's the comment on screen, and here's the upvotes, so thank you. This was the most upvoted comment to pick the Paystar today, so thank you guys for your comments, and I would say to those who keep commenting the same truck, please just keep it up. And please keep voting, please keep participating, because this is just a fun thing. I promise at one point you will see the base game truck that you want. So keep participating. So I just want to encourage you for those. I do see your comments, and just want to encourage you guys to keep voting. So thank you so much. It's been great. One thing I do want to mention before we start is these are not reviews. I've been getting a lot of comments of people saying these are not good reviews. They don't have the pros and cons in them, because those have already been done, guys. They're on the channel. Every time I put out a truck request video, the link for the actual official review is in the description. So you can find those are on the channel, or you can just go to my playlist and go to SnowRunner Truck Reviews, and they're on the channel. So my question to y'all with the 4th installment here of the truck request is, what took you guys so long? I expected this one to be like number 2, but hey, bases are loaded right now. Paystar, Western Star, Kodiak, and now the 5070's up to bat right now, and he's about to hit the Grand Slam. So before we start, I think a little background about like the nature, I guess, of myself is that I think when I find something to give me a competitive edge, even though I know this game is not competitive, don't get me wrong, I'm the middle of 5 boys, okay? And all my brothers are named with a J, but me, okay? So it's weird, right? We all played sports. So anytime I would find a competitive edge, I would either just keep it to myself or we'd keep it in the family. And that's kind of like something I've always done, is that I always kind of like have kept things to myself. I don't really just go out and reveal and let my mouth just reveal everything about myself. So I kind of just keep all those things to myself. So using YouTube and finding out things and basically publishing them, it's totally against who I am. So it's kind of been a fun way to kind of like break out of that and kind of share, you know, things I learn, I guess, which is, I think, an awesome thing. I really am the type of guy who, whenever your favorite artist comes out with an album, there's that one song that's on like the Billboard top charts that everyone's singing, everyone's like jamming out to this song. I'm the guy in the background looking at all the other tracks on the album, trying to find something that's even better and not telling anyone about it. So it's just a weird thing. But yeah, let's get started here on the Paystar 5070. We'll talk about those things that I found out with this vehicle. If you want to know what those are, if you stop right now and go and watch my tier list, I actually referenced something I was going to look into for the Paystar. And if you can figure it out, let me know in the comments. But that video, I'll talk about that later. Don't worry, I'll give you the info. All right, so Paystar 5070. There's a lot of things that people really dislike about this. There's a lot of things that I definitely have issues with, but I think it has a lot of upside to put it on a tier list that I think, in a tier list spot that I think is respectable. A lot of times in the beginning of the game in 2020, people were saying just get the Paystar and you'll crush the game. I think they were probably right. I just think I utilized things very wrong, and I just didn't know how to play, which is, I guess that's how it is when, you know, I'm an MMO background player. I never played off-road simulator games. This was just something I picked up on a whim, and all of a sudden, like, I'm, you know, making YouTube videos. So it's just a very weird thing. So there was a pretty big learning curve for me starting this game. So Paystar, I think after I lost my game files, I got back to, you know, testing trucks and progressing through and reviewing them. This was one I really enjoyed, actually, and I started to grow a deep respect for it. And even more so whenever I met Max Power and we started working on the mud running tips video, which I think is the best video on the channel still to this day. So moving on here, let's talk about the Paystar. Sorry for that long, drawn-out intro. So the garage tour consists of this. The GP8V Special 31 it is 150,000 torque. It's nothing to write home about. It's 5,000 more torque than the Kodiak's engine, which we just talked about last episode. But there's something here that makes this a lot better, or I would say gives it more pulling power. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Gearboxes, I'm going to choose off-road. I love manipulating gears, being able to break stalls, stuff like that. That's just my MO. Putting low plus on, firing diffs only if I want to save fuel, because I'm going to be real with you, 150,000 torque with this truck's weight, it doesn't give a lot of good power to weight. I don't like these scales, okay? I think these are just liars. So I don't really pay attention to this like scaling here. I pay attention to actually what I'm seeing. So I don't think it has a great power to weight. I think it's decent, but because 150,000 torque and then you're loading it up with weight, you're going to pull some values that are going to be sustained that you probably don't want to see. And having 64 gallons, 240 liters of fuel, you don't have much uptime. So that's kind of like where my problem is with this vehicle. I would actually love to see a gearbox that has like a per gear ratio similar to what they did with the Pinnacle, but make it like an off-road gearbox. But make the per gear ratio consumption multipliers like better, kind of like how they did with the Pinnacle, but just in an off-road gearbox, I guess, setup. So to make this thing efficient, even though because it's not going to be a rapid vehicle, I'm not going to lie to you, especially with weight, you can get it moving pretty rapid with high range. I've seen it happen. I've done it. But mostly I think this thing is just one of those, it's a crawler, man. It's one of those, low gear, diff lock, grind it out. So like that is something that concerns me with fuel consumption, because you have 64 gallons, your engine is working stupid hard to pull the weight behind you. It's going to do it most of the time, but it's just going to draw a lot of fuel from it. So those are things that I'm concerned about. I'm less concerned about taking its race suspension and just using its stock. Essentially, this vehicle you could consider it a fully upgraded vehicle, just from base. And that's why it's a great starter vehicle, because you really don't need the race suspension that you find in White Valley, Alaska, I think. But for me, I'm going to use it because I'm pretty comfortable with how I'm going to use this vehicle. And you can see the configuration on screen, which is how I generally use this vehicle. But if you are concerned about balance, and that's something that you're not necessarily good at, is keeping vehicles on their wheels, go stock suspension and then just get a JAT double tire and give yourself even more width on the bottom. Another thing that kind of like, you're not really losing out with not putting the race suspension on, because there is no tire size upgrade. But something amazing about a North American vehicle, which at the time of release was kind of unheard of, is getting tire options like this. Okay, JAT tires weren't a thing, but now they are, right? So you have like JAT OHS, which are incredible. You have OHDs, notably incredible. I'll talk about those here in a second. And then also like the normal OHS2s. I would probably not use OHS2s or like the single narrow track tires unless you're doing like 2-slot deliveries where you're not putting a ton of weight down on your axles, right? This is going to get you the most performance, pending you're not dragging your frame through like crazy heavy conditions. It's noted on my reviews of the JAT tire review and such like that. All those timings are down there. The single narrow track tires perform the best under favorable conditions. So if you have a good hitbox, yeah, OHS2s do great. And this is why most speedrunners like Timmy Gunn and guys like that, they crush it and they're using JAT OHS tires or even OHS2s, because single narrow track they don't accumulate resistance. They cut through the mud pretty well, and they have good coefficients. So in this case though, I'm going to use the OHDs. If I could also switch it up and use a JAT OHD to even further my footprint down on the ground to make it even more stable, this is a good thing. So that's what I would suggest, is using a double if you're going to haul weight, which I think you should haul more than just 2 slots. Something I think on the review I got wrong, I was on like the right track though, but I was just so fascinated at the time that a North American vehicle had mud tires. And at the time I was like, wow, look at this. It has these MHS ones. Like, goodness, this is amazing. But the thing is, like, mud tires don't necessarily perform better than OHDs, especially with weight. So while you can use these, they look good. I still think the best configuration to use is either a Jet OHD or a OHD tire, a double basically, because it stiffens your rear suspension, it handles weight better, and yeah, it's much better. So that's kind of like my plug there. And also it has OHD chains, which is quite incredible as well. Winches are standard, switchable all-wheel drive, switchable diff lock. Spare tires, I don't use these because I don't want to drag this anywhere underneath, because none of this stuff down here, this pipe, none of this stuff is mapped. This is, so you can drag this and catch this on stuff. Don't really want that to happen, even though it kind of sucks. I would like to have it, but I don't like dragging stuff. The short round cap, it's not super tall. I think it's sufficient. The truck does sit, I don't want to say too tall, but it's decent. It'll get you through most crossings. It won't get you through the crossing that I showed you yesterday with the, or not yesterday, the day before, with the Kodiak, because Kodiak was just really tall and the snorkel was literally up to the roof. So you probably won't get in deep water like that, but in a lot of crossings, you'll be okay. Moving on to add-ons. I do like the utility. I do think the vehicle is versatile with considerations to balance, I would say not balance, stability. If you're comfortable with stability, I would say this is potentially a versatile vehicle for you. If you feel this vehicle is too much to keep on its wheels, it's probably not going to feel versatile for you. So it's kind of I don't want to say it's a player preference or a player comfort thing, but in my opinion, I've used it for logs. I've used it for short logs. Pretty much all these things that you see on screen, I've used it and I've had success with it. I don't really think there's a add-on it cannot support. To be honest, I think it pulls very well, even with long logs, medium logs. It's just those considerations of stability. You know, you add super tall medium log bunk, which I don't know why this thing is so tall, but it's just crazy tall. But yeah, this just causes you to sway too much. So in that case, JAT OHDs, and get yourself some wider footprint here. So then you're trying to keep this thing on its wheels better. But in my case, you're probably going to hear this a lot. I'm most likely, you're probably gonna hear this in most of my videos. So I apologize beforehand. I'm going to use a low saddle if I can. And that's kind of like my default. You could use a sideboard bed like you're seeing here with a hitch trailer. I don't really think you should though, because I'd rather have more weight hitting back double big OHD tires. I wouldn't say big OHD tires, but OHD heavy tires, and having them drive traction and work with you than work against you by dragging, 4 more pieces of cargo that are not benefiting you at all. They're just dragging through the earth. That's dead weight. That's my perspective. But also, like, if you run this through a test, the semi-trailer is going to win because there's less friction to pull and there's more transfer of weight to rear axles. That's kind of like why I will always pull a semi. That's why I took a lot of time to learn how to back a semi. I think that's kind of in my opinion, I think it's becoming meta. You could lose the crane here, okay? Because the crane does add a good bit of weight. You can see that the suspension's kind of dropping there. I'm going to say I think it handles it well. But I would just say if you are concerned with stability, you can pull this off and just auto load. But I think the upside of the small crane vastly counters the downside of it, which is basically it just causing it to be unstable, even more so. I think the ability to catch yourself coming off balance and just to be able to push yourself through mud, so many things I've done with a small crane, I think it's an invaluable asset to have. I think there's 2 add-ons that are the best in the game. One, I'm going to say, is the small crane. The second one is the autonomous winch. Autonomous winch is amazing. If you have it, you get that second chance, right? But with the loading crane, you can also get the second chance if you can deploy this thing fast enough to stop your tips. And we do that a lot, actually. So especially if you're tipping to your right side or pushing yourself through mud. A lot of different things you can do with it, man. Overstacking, doing counterbalance. We've done that a lot. There's a lot of different streams and things like that. I actually show, I think my trial for, I think it's that one downhill trial. I used this as a counterbalance in a lot of ways with the cargo, but it's just great, man. I love it. So essentially, that is the Paystar 5070. In this next portion where I'm going to drive, I'm going to talk about what I've been kind of hinting on with the special qualities of this vehicle. I'm going to talk about how I feel it performs in current day, and also how it stacks up to some other vehicles that have come out in and out of its class. And then I'll basically give some thoughts on, do I think it's going to survive in the new season, 17, 18, 19, and 20, if we get a year 5 pass, which I think we're going to. So let's get started here and let's check out some good footage. Okay, so after an extremely long garage tour there, I apologize, guys, for those who just wanted to see me kind of drive around and talk about this thing and show, I guess, some pulls and stuff like that. I apologize. I just wanted to kind of be thorough for those who have been wanting to see what I think about each individual add-on setup and how I would just kind of use this vehicle and my thoughts and such like that. I do kind of get a little bit carried away with that, so I apologize, but I just wanted to be very thorough there. So I did hint on some special qualities about the Paystar, but to be quite honest, if you look at it across the board numerically, there's not anything that really stands out, making it that much better than anything else. And what I hinted on was actually from a video I had speculations about, which is my tier list. And when I talked about the Paystar in my tier list video, my most recent, but my new one's coming out here after the year 4 pass, so look out for that. But my year 3 tier list, I mentioned that I believe there is a relationship with tire weights and pulling potential. And after that video came out, I actually went into doing some research, some testing, and I worked together with Naked Dave to kind of nail this down. And we produced this video, or I produced this video called The Power of Heavy Tires with his help. And essentially what we found out was when you increase tire weights, you increase pulling power. And that is what is going on right now with the Paystar. Even having 150,000 torque, it's punching way above its torque level. It will outpull trucks with 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60,000 more torque. I've seen it outpull the ANK up the test slope. I would probably have to go back and look at a different tire option with the ANK because it has different weight options. But a lot of vehicles that have higher torque than it will outpull. The power of heavy tires will show you instances of it pulling crazy amounts of weight that you would never think 150,000 torque would pull. Its consumption's probably pretty high. I'm not gonna lie. The engine is probably screaming for help, but it will pull it. And this is essentially what they've done in the game is when you increase tire weights, you increase pulling potential. I'm going to show an example here on screen. This is from Naked Dave, just quickly flashing the 200 kilo weights that are on the Dairy Special, and then also switching those out for just a 600 kilo option. This was actually done by Sabre for the Mastodon when it first came out. So when the Mastodon came out, it had 200 kilogram tires, and in my review, it kind of struggled with pulling power, and then as soon as they made it 600 kilo tires, it was absolutely just performing like crazy. So that's like the power of heavy tires. And most North American trucks, up until recently, have been using medium set tires, which are 100 kilos. And then if you have a double in the back, it's going to be 200 kilos. So, and then if you make them a heavy tire is 200 kilos. So on the back, you have 400 per double. And this has actually been shown to make the Paystar a monster at pulling, to be quite honest. I've used it in season 15, pulling it through ice fields. It will pull up hills. It just does a really good job for 150,000 torque. And not to mention, it looks absolutely great. It's one of the, in my opinion, it's one of the better looking trucks in the game. And we have some pretty good looking vehicles. I'm going to say that straight up. Things I don't like. Well, consumption. I kind of mentioned that a little bit in the garage tour and just recently here. The engine is not huge. So the engine is going to work hard the majority of the time, pretty much. So couple that with a mediocre fuel tank size, you're not going to have a lot of uptime, to be honest. Stability is probably one across the board that just throw people over the edge with this vehicle. Me personally, I just find it a little bit of a challenge. Use a semi-trailer, create angles, and I think you're good. Use your crane to catch yourself in scenarios like that, and you can kind of get by. So I think just with better play, you can basically like mitigate that weakness there. Or you just drop the suspension, add a Jat tire, and yeah, you can kind of navigate that way. Ways to make this better. I kind of hinted at this, but this is something I didn't really think about until the Mac Pinnacle came out, and also the Terra Pro. They added custom gearboxes with, I would say, relatively low all-wheel drive penalties, but also what we didn't really see, but you can see that actually on a spreadsheet, a Corhone's sheet, is actually, they have much lower consumption multipliers per gear. So that's why the Mac Pinnacle and Terra Pro have crazy good consumption. I would say even the Mac Pinnacle is probably the best consumption in the game, to be honest right now. I don't know another vehicle that has better consumption, especially coupled with its engine and, yeah, the gearbox, a special gearbox. I actually wish they would make an off-road gearbox for the Paystar that's like that, where it would have, like, the low gears wouldn't chew up as much fuel. So the nature of the vehicle, I think, is slow marching, grinded out, slow gameplay. You're not going to just jump into high and just blaze in a high-range gearbox. It's going to be more of a slow, churn it out type of vehicle. I like that, to be honest, but I think it would be great that maybe it doesn't have the most rapid pace, but it's efficient. I think we will see that here in the Season 16 trucks, so kind of hinting there at my reviews in the future, but I really wish they would do that with the Paystar. It's a great looking truck. It's one of my favorites. It probably is in the top 5, one of my favorite trucks. Like, I don't know where I would put it. It's weird. Since I've been reviewing vehicles, my favorite truck list just kind of like expands. It's weird. I tend to like a lot of vehicles. That's just how it is, I guess. So how does this stack up with new trucks? Well, the new vehicles, even outside its class in the heavy duty, are definitely power creeping it, right? Because they have better power to weight, they have more weight, they have OHD tires. Most likely those OHD tires are bigger, and their collision mesh is not like OG 2020. So yeah, the Paystar's not going to outperform like an FLD, C500, or even a Mac Pinnacle by any shot. But I still think in its class, it still sits pretty high on a tier list. Does it sit around the elite status? I don't think so. I think a couple things I mentioned kind of hold it back from that spot, so you'll see that on the tier list. But I do think even in new maps, it's going to hold up well. So I think if you're willing to take its downsides or take the things that it's not good at and kind of work around them and just work to its strengths and just understand you're not going to be just blazing down the road delivering cargo like you would in like a Tega Voron or these new heavy duty trucks that come out, and just understand like you're going to have some struggle, but it has enough grit to get the job done. And also it's a dang good looking vehicle as well. So I think you'll enjoy it if you can mitigate its weaknesses and work to increase its strengths. With that being said, please comment in the comment section what truck you want to see next from the base game, and the most upvoted comment will be the next vehicle we feature on the channel. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video and potentially learned a few things along the way as well. So until next time, y'all, God bless and stay upright.